morning, Mark. Nice to see you again.
Nice
Um,
to meet
um, based on what we talked about recently, it sounded like you had a good online class, and I just thought it would be great to hear more about how that went and get your thoughts. So maybe tell me a little bit about the online class and kind of what happened.
Well, so far since COVID started, I've done 2 of the FMT workshops. The first one I did was actually marketed as an in-person class at a local community college. But of course, when COVID hit, because it was at the end of March, we actually pivoted and did it online. And then what I did is in this case, I mailed them the workbooks. In fact, I think my assistant actually had delivered some of them because some people signed up the same day. But we had 22 people sign up, 22 people attended the webinar. And I believe out of that, we probably got 80%, 85% of those people as appointments. So it was for my area, I'm in Castle Rock, Colorado, and typically it's response rates to mailings and seminars and those sorts of things is typically pretty low. But what I've always liked about FMT is because they're paying a tuition and it's a 2-night course, the quality of people that you get in terms of assets is very high. But anyway, so that seminar in terms of pivoting and doing all that went really well. And then we set up the Zoom meetings to meet with them for the lab sessions. And I would say with that one, kind of the learning curve was really getting the lab sessions down because, you're so used to doing them in person that doing them virtually was a bit of it wasn't a challenge. It was just very different. And it just seemed to take longer to kind of get people through the process where ultimately they engaged us to become a client or, they moved off. They didn't want to become a client. And then, they go into the drip campaign. So at any rate, the next seminar we did was advertised, obviously, virtually, and we had 10 people sign up. And what was interesting about this one, I must have done a better job in the speaking part of it because, again, when you're speaking in person, you have the engagement of the audience and you can see the facial expressions, whereas this, I kind of pop up on the screen at the beginning, but then really I'm just going into the slides at that point. So I think I was more animated in terms of how I presented, because you're trying to keep people engaged looking at a computer screen and I have to shorten it up, but maybe 2 hours is quite a bit. But everybody hung in there. I didn't have anybody drop off or anything. And actually I had 2 people that had scheduled lab sessions really before they even came to the second class. So I think that was 2 weeks ago. I've got 4 or 5 closing meetings coming up over the next week. So all these people we've processed through, we've had second meetings, second lab sessions, and every single one of them now is going to the what I call the closing appointment or the recommendation meeting. So it's actually been very successful. I mean, I kind of go, hey, if this is the new world, I don't mind it at all. I know that probably my appointment ratio is not going to be as high with virtual, but because we had 7 out of 10 that wanted an appointment, which, I'll take that all day long. And all the lowest I've seen in assets under management, we have one couple that they have about $500,000, but she has a lump sum pension because she's contemplating leaving her position, but it's $700,000. But so that was the lowest that I saw, $500,000. Everybody else was $1 million to $3 million.
That's great.
So,
were there any interesting questions that attendees asked?
Most of the questions I got was really centered around taxes. I think if somebody's thinking about doing this, it's really a pretty simple process, and it's just getting really 1 or 2 of these under your belt in terms of tweaking how you're talking. I mean, you have to be. I think I'm not going to say overly enthusiastic, but I think you have to kind of raise that level of fluctuations in your voice, have more stories. You've got to make it engaging enough to make sure that pretty much going to pay attention through the thing and not, turn on the TV and watch Netflix and, while they're looking at the workbook or something.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so you mentioned, I think you mentioned 2 hours. Is that about the target that you delivered the 2 nights, 2 hours each?
Yeah, I actually think the second half was probably a little bit longer than that. So it might have been like 2 hours and 15, maybe 2 hours and 20 minutes.
So that's great. So it sounds like it was a good experience. Are you planning on running another online class?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got to get with my rep and get those things figured out. But yeah, that is definitely the plan. Do one more before the end of the year.
Okay. Okay, great. Anything else that you would like to share that you think might be beneficial to other advisors?
Well, I mean, I can tell you this from my experience. So, because FMT is part of my marketing strategy. It's very effective. It's effective when we're in a normal environment, but ultimately, I mean, I've been fortunate where I'm seeing very good success in this environment where, you would think I was very concerned going into all this that I'm going, God, I've got to do something. And I hope this works. It was kind of like, I hope this works. And it's actually worked extremely well. Because my feeling is I just can't sit here and do nothing. I have to do something. But the concern is if we do something, commit these marketing dollars to that, obviously we want a return on our investment, and that's not always assured, but so far it's the opportunities are definitely there.
That's great. Well, great, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.